Whole sports all plays. Yeah. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. 365, we making up plays. You talking the game, get you to the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. Whole sports all plays.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to ASAP in the Morning. We are live this morning on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and of course, live on the Roku app, Fox D Network, and Tiki Live. It is Tuesday. I had to think about it for a second. It's Tuesday, November 1st, 10:05 on the East Coast, and I'm joined, as always, by Ray Cruz. Good morning, Ray. How you doing?
I am doing good. How y'all doing today?
Fantastic. We're doing great, man. We got some trick-or-treating done last night. Yeah, it was a little wild because we do like an hour and a half, right? Like an hour and a half trick-or-treating, and then we were still getting trick-or-treaters at like 10 o'clock at night. Like they were supposed to be done at like 8 o'clock. And people kept coming to the door. It was interesting.
Yeah, we did trick or treating around the neighborhood and our friend's neighborhood, and this year it seemed like it was less people doing trick or treating because of the inflation and stuff like that. So
that's what I thought. I thought the same thing. I was walking around our neighborhood, so of course, naturally, with two kids, one of them wanted to stay home and pass out candy, and the other one wanted to go out. So we divide and conquer. I'm out with the one trick or treating, and then my wife's out with the other one sitting at home passing out candy. And I'm walking around the neighborhood and I'm like, there's not as many people out this year as there were last year. It felt like, yeah, I feel you there. I don't know what went into that, but
yeah, we had this one neighborhood that we always go to. They always have a haunted house type deal set up, and they scaled it all the way back down, just having somebody pass out candy and a little bit of smoke coming out of the garage.
Oh, really?
So,
dang. Yeah, it is what it is. You know, that's kind of the reality of stuff that we live in. But good morning, everybody. Like we said, we are live this morning on Facebook and Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Also on the Fox D Network, Tiki Live, and Roku. Let us know where you're watching from this morning. Get my microphone here so I'm not breaking. I can hear it. So I'm going to try not to, my mom told me I was very loud all the time. My voice projects. So I'm going to try to, there you go. Keep it away a little bit. So I'm not breaking y'all's eardrums, but yeah, good morning. Let us know where you're watching from. We had great action of sports last night. The World Series Game 3 was postponed. So that's going to be rescheduled for tonight. That got rained out. So we'll talk a little bit about World Series. We didn't have a chance to talk about it too much yesterday, but it worked out because they didn't even play. But we're going to talk about it did. It worked out. But we got some fun stuff lined up on the show today. And the first thing to discuss really is the NFL trade deadline. So the NFL trade deadline is today at 4 p.m. Eastern. There's a lot of conversation still about what names could get moved. And we mentioned one of the moves that has already been made is Roquan Smith from the Chicago Bears was traded to the Baltimore Ravens for a few picks, most notably a second-round pick and then a couple others thrown in as well. So for the Chicago Bears, we kind of talked about this side yesterday a little bit when it came to the moves that they've already made. And it seemed like they were kind of in not tank mode, but they're in rebuild mode. So if you're the Chicago Bears, this makes sense. You're trying to still shed some salary. You're trying to still build around Justin Fields and get rid of some of those contracts that you're not going to hang around with anyway. So if you got guys that are going to be out the door, why not try to trade them for something else? On the Baltimore Ravens side, and this is the question that I want to pose, to you, Ray, is what kind of an impact does this make for the Baltimore Ravens, and what kind of an impact does this have on the AFC North as a whole?
Well, first before we do this, I want to go ahead and pass out thoughts on Adam Zimmer, Mike Zimmer, former Minnesota Vikings coach. Son passed away at age 38 last night. So let's keep your prayers in for the Zimmers. And let's go on. I'll move on to your question now here. To me, I think Chicago's just unloading salary. I think it's more of a rebuild mode around Justin Fields' skill set. So, they started with the defense, cleaning house a little bit, getting players that they possibly won't going to re-sign with them out of the way. So you get some value for them without losing them. So that's a good thing there for Chicago. But I think it's also Baltimore's adding another linebacker into their repertoire of defensive, restocking their defense, because now they know they need more defense, because with the offense's uniqueness, if Lamar Jackson can't get it going right away, the defense has got a hell surge. So getting Roquan Smith is helping you get a sure tackler in that linebacker core. It shores up your defense, gives you a little bit more depth at the linebacker position. Now you got your defense set to where if Lamar Smith is not on track, the defense can handle in and try to get him short field going back towards the Ray Lewis's days and the Baltimore Ravens with Trent Dilfer at the quarterback position, because Lamar Jackson has seen he's been on and off, and the offense, if team stops the offense, the defense is in real bind. So by upgrading your defense with Roquan Smith, a sure tackler from Chicago, who is now Chicago don't have to worry about re-signing him now, but it's all Baltimore have to do. If they want to re-sign him, they can, or they just written him out for this year. That's a kind of a win-win for both teams, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned Chicago doesn't want to pay him, so he's Roquan Smith, 25 years old, in the final year of his rookie contract, slated to become an unrestricted free agent after this year. And Spot Track, who does a lot of salary type stuff, they're kind of a very well-known commodity when it comes to looking at salary caps and player salaries and the like. They're basing they have an average salary. They're projecting it to be about $17.5 million roughly, which would be the second highest among active off-ball linebackers. So if you're the Chicago Bears, are you in a position that you want to pay $17-18 million for a guy that is going to have an impact in your defense, but where your franchise is right now, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But what you mentioned for the Baltimore Ravens, for them, this obviously makes a ton of sense because they're sitting at the top of the AFC North. If at best they get him signed to an extension, and he's in that locker room long term, most of the time I should say historically, the Baltimore Ravens have always had a good defense, and it's anchored by good linebacking core. So if they're able to kind of loop him in with Patrick Queen, Josh Bynes, Klein Harrison, those guys, and be able to lock him up long term, great. You now have a linebacking core that, at least for the next few years until Patrick Queen comes ready for his contract, then you might have a decision to make. But right now, at worst, you have this guy for the rest of this year, and you can make one good hard push for a Super Bowl with him on your lineup. And I think that's like you said, I agree. I think it's kind of a win-win situation. And that's at the top of this division when you've got, the Bengals and the Browns, who played last night Monday Night Football, and you really don't know from each team what you're going to get. We know Pittsburgh's likely not going to win the division. They're kind of on the edge of rebuild mode right now. They should be, but whether they see that internally or not is a different story. So I think right now the division is the Ravens' division to lose. And at this point, you're trying to reload and add more talent to that defense, which is only going to help Lamar Jackson and the offense hopefully get some shorter fields and all that kind of stuff. So I like this move. I'm not terribly surprised that that Chicago's was continuing to trade more pieces away. You saw Robert Quinn, they traded him to Philadelphia last week. So this makes a lot of sense. I was looking for the tweet. I think it was from Field Yates about all the draft capital that the Chicago Bears will have now out of this trade. But while we're doing that, we have not let you know about the ASAP Network social media here for the ASAP Network. We are live this morning and every morning on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and you can find us on all those platforms. On YouTube, search ASAP Sports Network. On Facebook, at All Sports All Plays. On Twitter, at ASAP Network 1. And on Twitch, at ASAP Network. You can like, you can subscribe, you can share. Definitely helps us out a ton, not only here on ASAP in the morning, but on all around the rest of the network as well. I'm still looking for this tweet, so I'd like to, if you want to kind of take it over for a minute.
Yep. Well, if we continue on with the Roquan Smith too, one reason you talk about Patrick Queen has fallen short of the first round expectation in late March. The Ravens were close to landing free agent Bobby Wagner, who decided to sign with the Los Angeles Raiders. Roquan Smith is 25, has the second most tackles and 606 in the NFL since 2018, trailing only Wagner 656. So, I mean, if they were trying to get Bobby Wagner, on the off season, I think it's a better move because you got a younger guy in Roquan Smith now who's going to play a little bit longer than what Bobby Wagner is going to play. So I mean, he's almost catch up. He's about 50 behind Wagner since 2018 in tackles. So I mean, at age 25, you got a sure tackle, you got a physical tackler who is now your inside linebacker who can play physical with the team. That's what they like, because you remember when Ray Lewis is there, they was all physical in that linebacker core. And I think this is a younger version of Ray Lewis. He might not be as talented Ray Lewis, but I think he's the missing piece that the Baltimore Ravens was missing at the time of this thing with Ray Lewis is being gone, and they haven't had anybody really to place him. So I think Roquan Smith gets that replacement for them, for Ray Lewis's type style play, because he's physical, point of contact. You want him to meet a guy in the hole. He can also do a pass. He can also pass rush. The same thing with Ray Lewis used to do. Ray Lewis used to be a run stopper. He made himself into a great linebacker, blitzing linebacker when he wanted to run the blitz up the middle. And I think that gives Roquan Smith another type of element. I think Jim Harbaugh is now probably going to save his coaching philosophy of defense and offense coming along behind your defense. And that also gives Lamar Jackson another benefit of the doubt, because Roquan Smith can intercept the ball and he can turn it into a short field type things what they're looking for on their defense. Because if you look at back in the past, when Baltimore Ravens won the Super Bowl, what they did, they turned the football field into a short field. And most of the time they started on the other side of the 50-yard line, on the other team's 50 or beyond. They gave Chuck Diver a short field, don't have to worry about it doing a long drive. So you can do the same thing with Lamar Jackson, a little bit a better upgrade. He can move his legs and stuff, but he don't have to work the whole entire field if this defense does produce the same style that Ray Lewis and them produced, where they were short field all the time, most of the time, and then you also got good field position because you back the team up in their thing. So on the punch, you get good field position. So this is all about a field position game for Baltimore, and with Roquan Smith there is going to give him that opportunity to be that opportunistic defense that they have sorely missed since Ray Lewis is gone. So
yeah, you had mentioned Roquan Smith. He leads the NFL right now in tackles with 83. He's got 2 interceptions and 2.5 sacks this year. So not only has Smith recorded double-digit tackles in all but 2 games this season, but you mentioned that he's he's recorded 100+ tackles in all 4 of his seasons, and he's got the 4th most in the NFL at 246 of active linebackers. So we talked about, this is kind of what I was looking for. So if you're the Chicago Bears, we mentioned, yes, Frankie, good morning. Actually, we already kind of notated that. We had to mention on it already at the top of the show about Adam Zimmer, the former Vikings assistant coach and son of Mike Zimmer, passed away last night. That news has come out this morning. So as Ray mentioned, our thoughts and prayers go out to the family, the Zimmer family. If you're the Chicago Bears, this is now what your 2023 draft looks like. You have your own first, you've got 2 seconds, a third, 2 fourth, 2 fifth, and a 7th. Now, basically, you can find some diamonds in the rough in like the 4th round on. I don't know what that was about.
Oops. Oh, you put it on a slideshow. That was me clicking it.
I figured because I didn't touch anything.
I didn't know you made it a slideshow.
Yep. All right. So as I mentioned, this is good stuff. They're showing something about Kyrie Irving that I would love to talk about. Actually, no, we can't. That's too bad. It's bad stuff. All right. So it's for the Chicago Bears. If you're looking that rebuild is now from like the 4th round on, you're not going to see a ton of guys that are going to make the roster. Maybe they'll be there in the short term. But really what you're looking for, what you see here is they have a 2nd round pick from the Ravens, and you can package some of these picks now to move up in the draft if you feel the need, or if you feel like that's the move to make. Or if you really just want to stockpile talent, now you can. I mean, you essentially can get 7, 8, 9 players and add it to your roster, and just to be able to continue to add more staff and just add more talent to this team. And now that rebuild is on. That rebuild is on. We'll see how they try to navigate the rest of this trade deadline and the rest of the year, knowing that at the end of this year, they're going to continue to push forward in their rebuild. And at this time, we're going to bring in Pride. Good morning, Pride. Welcome back to the show.
You there?
Just kidding. He's not here at the moment. We'll let him get his sound figured out. But all right, so trade deadline. What other players do you think are going to be kind of on the hot seat for most likely to get traded today?
Look for the Houston Texans to trade Brandon Cook, the wide receiver. They've been shopping him around. I know the Jacksonville Jaguars have made some inquiries on him. Hopefully he can become a dominant first wide receiver that the Jaguar needs. But there have been rumors that the Texans don't want to trade him to the Jaguars inside of the division with a franchise quarterback and Trevor Lawrence, because I could give Trevor Lawrence a good hook up there. And also the Jaguars are need a number 1 wide receiver, because if you look at the play against the Denver Broncos over Sunday, the last interception, it really didn't. If you look at, and what I'm trying to say here is not trying to put DeAndre Hopkins in a book of a wide receiver for the Jaguars, but if the Jaguars can have somebody like Andre Hopkins who can go up and high point a ball, who challenges their corners, who's guarding him, the Jacksonville Jaguars doesn't have that. We don't have a wide receiver that will go up and get the ball and try to take it away from an opponent. Because if you look at the one interception at the end of the game, that sealed the game for the Denver Broncos, was Williams for the Broncos dived at the wide receiver, cut the wide receiver off, and got the interception. But if Kirk would have done the same thing and dived at him, he could have pinpointed him and getting the ball out of his reach and save an opportunity. But we didn't see that from him. We just saw him like looking right at him, and he gets bumped out of the way, and Williams comes up with the interception and seals the games. But the Jaguars do need a number one. They need an alpha male, what we call them. Andre Hopkins is an alpha male wide receiver. He'll go up and high point the ball, get the ball away, make some kind of miracle play that the quarterback was spraying to make the quarterback look good. Sometimes you got to have a receiver that can do that. Go up and challenge these guys, make plays. We don't have that type of a guy here in Jacksonville. And we had the guy in Robinson. We let him go for godly unknown freaking reason why. That really set us back. That set us back big time, too. If we could have kept Robinson here, I think we would have been a better team at wide receiver, Alvin Robinson, because he was doing very good for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And he was the alpha male on that wide receiving core at the time. But now when we lost him, we lost the alpha male. We went through some coaching changes. We went through Tom Coughlin, which I understand came back as a player operation. But we lost a team in 2017 that we won the championship, almost won the AFC championship with. And he got dismantled in 2018 because Tom Coughlin didn't like the way Jalen Ramsey was talking to him. He didn't like the way he didn't show up in the Tom Coughlin time, which is he said you be here 5 minutes, you about to be here 10 minutes prior, or else he'll you do it. But that's the thing too. And then what happened to the defensive side for Jacksonville, we lost Calais Campbell. We let him go to Baltimore, and that really, really hurt because he was the heart and soul of our defense. If we could have kept him and not let him go bye-bye again, let him go bye-bye to Baltimore, I think Jacksonville would be a better team as of right now on the defensive side because Calais Campbell was that mayor of Saxonville, and that's what happened with that. But see, so keep your eye on Brandon Cooks. Keep your eye on Judy at the wide receiver for the Broncos because they've been chopping him around too. Look for Suggs, Chuck Suggs, whatever. I think that's his name for the wide receiver, defensive end for Denver Bronco.
Bradley Chubb.
There you go. Whatever his name is. He's an NC State player, so I don't keep up with him.
Oh, you kill me, man. You kill me sometimes.
I don't keep up with him because he's an NC State former player. I'm a Tar Heel fan, so you don't keep up with the other team players. But look, they've been trying to shop him around too. So it'd be look on for him to be on the trading blocks here on the trading deadline too. So we'll see how that all goes. That's my hot take on the trade right now.
Pride, welcome back. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys doing today?
There he is.
Oh, we're doing great.
We're good, man. How are you?
Beep boop, beep bop, beep boop, beep bop. It's my opening statements for today's episode.
Does not compute.
Lols.
Pride's now our resident robot on the ASAP in the morning group chat.
Yeah. I just beep boop, beep bop.
Beep boop, beep bop. All right. So hey, NFL trade deadline today at 4:00. We've seen now the Bears make a couple of moves. There's been some other minor moves around the league as well. But we mentioned a couple of names that might be most likely to get traded today at the deadline. I think, Pride, who do you think gets traded today?
I'll be honest.
4 p.m.
I'll be honest. No one. I think the one person who probably has the biggest chance to get traded, Ray touched on him, Brandon Cooks. He's probably Jerry Jeudy. But I think Jerry Jeudy has a better chance of staying. There's more of a chance of him staying in Denver because they kind of want to build around him, right? In Houston, Brandon Cooks is just there. He's just there. Like, I feel bad because he's a very good wide receiver. He's very talented, but he's just there. They don't know what to do with him now. They don't know about his future. But the thing is, they should have traded Brandon Cooks last year. And what happened last year? When everyone was expecting them to trade him, forget listening to offers, they said he was completely off the table.
Right.
Which is bizarre. because you have this young team, and Brandon Cooks now is what, 72. Like, you know what I mean? He's up there kicking it with in your age range, Craig. Like, he's mad old, So I honestly don't think anyone else is going to get traded. I think there's going to be conversations, and I think around 2:30 they're gonna really heat up. By 3:30 they're gonna die and go, okay, never mind. I don't see anyone else really making any trades, because if we're gonna be honest, what teams really need players right now?
I know Jaguar needs some wide receivers.
But who? But who's willing to trade for it? Baltimore was really the only place that Brandon Cooks or Jerry Jeudy could have went to, and they're showing you we're going all in defensively.
Yeah.
They're doubling down on the defensive side of the ball. So now who else? I mean, New England. I mean, yeah, we need a receiver, but after we traded for Devontae Parker and it hasn't really panned out how we expected, Bill Belichick is like, yeah, bump that. We ain't doing that again. The Jets are a young team, so they're kind of not really in the mix of trading for anyone.
Yeah, but Houston won't trade Brandon Cooks to the Jaguars. Jaguars already made some good offers to him, but they said they won't do it in the side of the division with a franchise quarterback.
Well, realistically, the asking price for Brandon Cooks rumored is to be a second-round pick at minimum, and there's no team in the league right now that's going to do that.
Exactly.
There's no team in the league.
I think the only team who will probably panic and do that, and again, panic, it's probably the Rams, and it would have to involve a second-round pick and Allen Robinson.
There's conversation that Brandon Cooks might be a trade candidate to go to Green Bay as well. Because Green Bay's desperate for receivers. Well, that's the problem. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say like Brandon Cooks to Green Bay. Yeah, he could probably fill that number one receiver role that they need bad. You know what I mean? Like, he would be the clear-cut best wide receiver in that room, and it's an upgrade. But if I'm Houston, Green Bay has nothing of what I want. I wouldn't even do Brandon Cooks for Aaron Rodgers. I wouldn't even do that, because if I'm Green Bay, think about it. Or if I'm Houston, I mean, I'm not gonna get rid of Brandon Cooks for like you said, the talk. Like, in order for me to sit down, if I'm Houston, for us to even have a conversation, and it's not like, oh yeah, if you give us a second, we'll be okay. No.
Mm-hmm.
Just for you to come in and for me to answer your phone call, it has to be a second-round pick. And then they're going to want more on top of that. So now when you start going there, again, I like Brandon Cooks. Don't get it twisted. Is he worth a second? I think that's a debate. I think you can even make an argument if he's worth a first, depending on the team and the situation. If you want to make that argument, I'll listen to it. But once I'm hearing a second and, I'm out. That's just me. Respectfully to Brandon Cooks. Once you're talking about, I want a second-round pick, and the instant I hear the word and, I'm disconnecting. I'm hanging up the phone.
Right.
Because at some point, you got to put it down. And like I said, I don't think, remember, this same thing kind of, I don't want to say it happened, because last year they didn't even take any offers. But last year, they were throwing 2-3 picks and players for Brandon Cooks. They wanted to offer that to them. So this is just another case of another team just holding on to a guy for too long, because had they done it last year, they would have been looking good. But like I said, I don't think there's going to be any trades. I don't think so. I think they had the opportunity to do it last year. They didn't. And again, with Jerry Jeudy in Denver, I mean, Denver wants to build around with Jerry Jeudy there. I think it's more likely they trade Russell Wilson. Matter of fact, no, Russell Westbrook, because that's how he's playing. I've been trying to defend this man for far too long. I love you, Russ, but until otherwise, bro, you're Russell Westbrook until further notice, brother. But they're willing to trade him before Jerry Jeudy. So
I think around Denver, a lot of the conversation is probably it's likely just because Denver's 3-5 right now. If they're not 3-5, obviously these conversations aren't happening.
Right. And that's a big thing too. I mean, again, 3-5. I mean, I don't care what you thought of them. Not a single soul thought at this point they'd be 3-5.
Yeah, I know I didn't.
Without a shut. I thought through 8. I thought at worst, and this is me saying at worst with injuries and everything falling apart and all that stuff. I thought 4-4 would be at worst. 3-5 is kind of bad. No, it's very bad because they got.
It's very bad.
That's when they said they were only a quarterback away.
Yeah, and they were, and their defense is still
is a problem.
It's still one of the top defenses in the league. It's just that offense is so bad.
It's doo-doo, bro. And Russ doesn't. It's crazy because now the last 2-3 weeks, Russ doesn't even know what to do with the ball. Nathaniel Hackett doesn't know what he's doing with the. I kid you not. This dude, Nathaniel Hackett, he gives me hope. He really does. If anyone out there, if you guys are depressed, sad, you feel like, man, life will never give me an opportunity, go watch Nathaniel Hackett be a coach, and I swear to God, it will give you the push to tell yourself, man. You know how back then they used to tell you could be anything you want to be. Nathaniel Hackett took that to heart. He's the embodiment of you can be anything you want to be. Because my guy is just there collecting a check, like, you know what I mean? Like, bless his heart, man. But I mean,
bless his heart.
Yeah, but listen, Broncos were a quarterback away. And now, but here's the question. Do you think that now they're a head coach away?
They're both. They're a head coach away. They need a new head coach.
So let me put it. Let me ask you like this. You think Russ could still be the quarterback to bring this team, this roster to a Super Bowl? You're just out on Nathaniel Hackett because I've been seeing on Twitter, people are saying both of them got to go.
No, I think if you put the right head coach and the right offensive coordinator with Russell Wilson and play to his ability, I think Russell Wilson still got the ability to take the team to where he needs to be, but they're not using him the right way. They're not rolling him out. If you watch what he did in Seattle when he rolls out most of the time, he's better on a rollout. And I'm gonna tell you the critical play in that Jacksonville Jaguar. Hold on, I'm gonna tell you the critical play in that Jacksonville Jaguar game was the 4th and 1 when he ran the ball, and everybody let him have a backdoor wide open because everybody was scared that he wasn't gonna run the ball. Nathaniel Hackett let him run the ball on the 4th and 1 and picked up the big first down that put that game away. Actually, put that game away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's crazy because Ray, you said that the last time I was here, you said that same thing about Nathaniel Hackett, that you have a guy in Russ who's good with his legs. He loves rolling out. Especially that play action rollout. He adores that. So it's like you got a guy who can throw the ball and is mobile, and he lets it throw the ball when he's outside the pocket. Why are you playing him like he's Peyton Manning with a broken neck when he was in Indy?
Because you got to think about it.
Hey, now, no Peyton Manning shots.
Nathaniel Hackett offense predicated on a pocket passer, not a running quarterback style. And if you really want to know about it is, Nathaniel Hackett likes to run his running backs up the middle most time. He runs 78% up the middle most of the time. And then he throws these little wide receiver screens that Russell Wilson don't even like half the time. Because how many times did he throw a wide receiver screen in Seattle with Russell Wilson?
Hardly ever. Hardly.
Okay.
The only time they ever really had it that much in the arsenal was when they had Golden Tate. And that was back then when Golden Tate was that dude when it came to the wide receiver screens. Outside of that anomaly with Golden Tate, Russ almost would rather throw an incompletion than a wide receiver screen.
Yeah. So Nathaniel Hackett predicates his offense up, run the ball up the middle with his running back, throws a wide receiver screens to a wide receiver that's not even built like Golden Tate or built like what's the wide receiver for the one up in Seattle? The one I can't think of his name. Came out of Ole Miss. Yeah, Metcalf. Yeah. Because they're big bodies, because they could break tackles. That's why they did it so much like that. But
Golden Tate was more shifty. He wasn't big.
But he was more powerful too. His legs. You look at his legs. His legs was generating more power. Golden Tate's legs were more powerful than what you thought.
He was like Maurice Jones-Drew. He was short, but he was He had that power in his legs.
Yeah.
You know how everyone loves Saquon's thighs? Before you fell in love with Saquon's thighs, it was Golden Tate's legs, bro.
Yeah.
That's what it was, bro.
Yeah. Pride, to your question about, you saw on Twitter, they both need to go. Anthony made the comment, you have to keep Russ because you paid him. I think from a practical standpoint, you paid so much money and gave up so much for Russ. I feel like you have to at least try a different coach with him. And if that doesn't work, then you're still another year into this experiment. But I think you have to try to change coaches first. And if two different coaches, you get the same result, then you probably got to look at, all right, maybe the problem is also Russell Wilson.
Okay. Because I was just wondering, because I was looking at it, and I don't know, like, me personally, I'm looking at it from without the money perspective. Like, I'm looking at it from, forget the contract you paid him. I'm ignoring that. I've said this before. I feel like it is easier to, when you're in a position that Denver is, it is easier to go out there and find a Jimmy G-esque type of quarterback, a middle of the pack, a Ryan Tannehill, a Jared Goat, like Jared Goff. I call him Jared Goat now. It's easier to find those type of guys.
If it wasn't for the money, I think both of them would be gone.
And honestly, that's what I'm saying, because I genuinely do feel like only reason why Denver isn't moving on from Russ. And mind you, if I was Denver, I would rock with Russ. But I'm convinced, had they not given him that extension before he even played a snap, if that extension doesn't happen, Russ is probably on the trade block right now. And that's probably what we're talking about. I genuinely feel like it goes back to after everything they gave, and for him to be performing like this. Now, granted, I'm not saying it's fully his fault. I've been defending him for a while now. There comes a point where I can no longer defend the man. It's very difficult for me to defend him and look in the mirror and take myself serious. I'm coming across as a Lakers fan defending Russell Westbrook. And as soon as I realized that, I was like, this now means he needs to be held accountable. And I genuinely do feel the Broncos probably would be trying to move on if it wasn't for that stupid amount of money that they would honestly owe him. Because if I'm mistaken, there's a trade clause in there. They got to pay, I think it's like 80% of his contract or something like that. It's stupid, and it's up front too. So it's like as soon as he gets traded, they're like, here you go, and he's like, hey, all right. So
what percentage of the blame would you put on Russell Wilson?
I'd
say it's at least 50-50.
I wouldn't go. I wouldn't go. So I'm gonna be dramatic. If I'm gonna be dramatic, 70-30.
That's not too far. I was thinking 60-40 right now.
But here's the thing. Honestly, legitimately speaking, I think 30% goes to Russ. I think he needs 30% of the blame. I think 60% needs to go to Nathaniel Hackett. And you know who the other 10% needs to go to? Us. For actually thinking Nathaniel Hackett could actually do something with the talent he had.
Hold up. Don't put me in this conversation, because I told Nate when he hired Nathaniel Hackett, that was the wrongest move ever.
He's saying us as in like fans and the media and expectations being way high.
Dude,
we know those of you that tune in the show, we know here that in this circle, we know what Nathaniel Hackett is.
He's got that job.
I'm gonna tell you what.
He got the job for one reason.
I'll be honest. I'm a fool for giving him a chance, because we saw what he is. You know what I mean? Like, how many times have we seen like Aaron Rodgers, like he'll go and like there's lip syncing, and they capture on YouTube. He'll be like, Aaron, here's what I think we should do. And Aaron Rodgers literally tells him, all right, shut up. Here's what we're doing. And then he goes, okay. And then walks away. Like, at least when Tom Brady told something to Josh McDaniels, at least Josh McDaniels was like, whoa, look here, you little piece of bleep. All right? You don't talk to me like that. At least he did that, right? He had some cojones on him, right? Nathaniel Hackett was like, humblest apology, sir. I'll go get your towel. And it's like, bro, we're playing in Miami. Why are you getting me a blanket? Like, we're in Miami. Sorry, sir. I'll go back to the locker room. Like, you know what I mean? And I honestly felt like, and let me just speak for me. Let me speak for me. I should have seen this coming. I genuinely thought that with the talent that they had, I thought it would be enough to override Nathaniel Hackett. I really did. I thought it would be a situation where Nathaniel Hackett would have to attempt to sabotage this team.
He already did.
Not only did he do it, but this offense, because again, I'm not saying Denver Broncos no more, because the defense is doing their job. They're doing what they need to do. But
Yeah,
this
they got a hell of a defense.
Yeah, but this offense is sabotaging themselves along with Nathaniel Hackett. And I, for one, I'm gonna take my look, because I thought every team in the AFC West was gonna make the playoffs. Fam, 2 of them might not even make it over 500. What a time to be alive, bro.
Hey, somebody sent the bad signal out for Rob. You know,
And when Anthony Price said Colts just fired their OC, all that's just a scapegoat move, because he don't even call the plays.
No.
Yeah.
No.
hey,
They need to get rid of Frank
we put
Reich.
we put the R signal up, like the bat signal. We put the R signal up. Rob just shows up. You know.
Rob's back with a vengeance, man. He came back from Hawaii, and he's refreshed, he's rejuvenated, and he was joining me on the show yesterday. He's ready to rock.
Hey, you gotta get it in while you can. Waikiki. It was in Honolulu, Waikiki.
Yeah.
Did you see all the hookers walking around still downtown Waikiki?
I saw a lot of homeless people. I thought I was going to have to cut somebody, but
hey, let me ask you a question, Rob. Since you went down to Waikiki, did you go out of Waikiki? Did you go to Honolulu too? Or did you just stay in Waikiki?
I think we just stayed in Waikiki. We did go to the Hawaiian golf course for the wedding that I was down there for, which has some beautiful scenery. Beautiful scenery, man.
The reason I was asking,
waterfall and everything.
The reason I was asking that question is because everything in Waikiki is $10 more than anything outside of Waikiki. Because if you go to McDonald's, the McDonald's Happy Meal, it would cost you about what, $3, and in the United States, it costs you about $15 down there.
Yeah, it's expensive down there. But I will say this: take advantage of the happy hours, ladies and gentlemen. When it's happy hour, from 2 to 5, go to them spots. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I lived there for 4 years, so.
Yeah, so my quote unquote niece, she's my niece, but by marriage, but she's older than me, so it's funny. But my niece was getting married. She's in the military, so yeah.
Yeah, so you guys had mentioned kind of a breaking
news
situation.
I gotta get this in. Hey, Pride, Connecticut sucks.
Hey, Chicago's a piece of dog water, bro. How you feeling, brother?
I hadn't seen Pride in so long, so I had to do it right, man.
Hey, we can get Pride started up. All we got to mention about LeBron going downhill.
Downhill? I mean, hold on. Look here. The best Lakers will put that on Braun. All right, let's free Braun.
He said free Braun. We mentioned the breaking news that's happened this morning. The Colts have relieved Marcus Brady of his duties as offensive coordinator. And really, you know, Chris, I know you follow the Colts very closely and you have Horseshoe Talk here on ASAP Network. And you mentioned this is kind of a scapegoat move where we've seen that already a few times this week in different teams around the league. So you mentioned Marcus Brady doesn't even call the plays. They're just firing scapegoats in preparation for other people to lose their jobs.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think Reich will make it the whole season, but then he'll be gone. I wish they'd go ahead and get rid of him because he's terrible. But Brady don't even call the plays, so you're just firing a guy and then going to hope that your offense plays better next week, so you can say, oh, he was the problem. But he's not the problem. And honestly, they already used Matt Ryan as a scapegoat by taking him out so early.
Well, he's dog water, so fuck him.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying he was playing great, but they took him out because basically Jim Irsay told Frank he had to. But I think this is just preparation that there's going to be a coaching change at the end of the season.
I mean, they would have to.
I know you mentioned Frank Reich. You said was terrible. So a guy who's had three winning seasons out of 5.5 seasons and 2 10-win seasons.
We're not talking.
Yeah,
Hold
but
on.
the problem is he coaches the team.
Yep.
He runs the team as offensive coordinator instead of the way he manages the games. And a lot of his game management decisions is what hurt us. And this year, his play calling hasn't been good, which surprised me because usually his play calling is decent, but this year it's just been bad. I mean, we can't score to more than 15 points a game.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you this, Chris. If Frank Reich does get fired, does Doug Peterson go back and hire him as an offensive coordinator?
I think he will.
Mm-hmm.
I think Frank Reich does. I think he does better off as offensive coordinator. If they had some, that's what hurts the Colts. The game management. You got one of the best running backs in the league, in Jonathan Taylor, and last week he touched the ball, or 2 weeks ago he got the ball 10 times, averaged 5.5 yards a carry. This week he only got the ball 15 times. Why aren't you? You got to use your weapons. I mean, Taylor should be getting the ball at least 20 to 25 times a game.
Yeah, and it's crazy because like you said, Chris, he's like one of the best running backs in the game, and he's like the Colts running game is like a bottom 5 in terms of actually like running the ball. It's honestly hilarious to me.
It's
like,
insane.
But again, this just goes to show how stupid the Colts were. They thought for some reason, I don't know why some people are pushing this false narrative. Matt Ryan is a baller. Matt Ryan is good. I'm like, spam laws in the chat, bro.
It's a statue.
He's horrible, bro.
Hey, Matt Ryan ain't been the same since he lost to Tom Brady in them.
Bro, Tom Brady stole his psyche. Stole it.
Oh,
from him. Like,
hey, Sam Ellinger played a lot better because he can move.
Way better.
Exactly.
We actually have a quarterback that can move and scramble a little bit.
Not only can he move, but this is honestly the biggest indictment I have on Frank Reich this year. He traded Carson Wentz with Matt Ryan and been desperate to prove the entire year that was the right move. And in doing that, he went and strayed away from what brought them success. Jonathan Taylor is blessed if he get double-digit touches. Let that sink in. A Derrick Henry, fresh off an injury, still hurt. He had, 20, 25 touches?
And if you look
last year in the playoff game when he came back?
Yeah, if you look last year, Taylor was getting 20 to 25 touches. Now, this year, he's lucky to get 15.
And that all comes down to the fact that they knew this was a bad trade, but they felt, we got to prove everyone wrong. We got to hope this is an anomaly. Matt Ryan, matter of fact, I'm changing his name, bro, to Mid Ryan. I've never seen someone have such a mid-career, and y'all people be blowing this man out of proportion. Like, yeah, man, he goated, bro. He's phenomenal. He's great. Great at what? My man can't even
he's great at being a statue.
I don't know.
And what the problem is Frank Reich was trying to save his job. That's why he was pushing Matt Ryan so much, because he was trying to save his job after he stuck his neck out for Wentz last year, and that didn't work. So he knew that this year, if this didn't work, he was in trouble. So he was trying to make, like you said, make Matt Ryan look good instead of doing what's smart for the team.
But the thing is, like, when I don't get this whole notion on Carson Wentz being a mess when he he did good. He
28 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. That's why I said
but
should stay with him one more year.
Exactly.
The problem was
that Jacksonville game.
Yeah, the problem was that Jacksonville game.
Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, the problem was that Jacksonville game with Wentz. Yeah, when it came to Jacksonville. But Matt Ryan didn't feel no better when he came back to Jacksonville this year. They still lost 24-0 in Jacksonville.
Right. In that game they lost to Jacksonville, Wentz didn't play good, but the offensive line didn't play good. The defense didn't play good.
Nobody played good.
The only person who I say deserves no blame is Jonathan Taylor, because Jonathan Taylor did everything he could. Outside of Jonathan Taylor, offensive coordinator, matter of fact, quarterback coach, throw him in the fire. We getting the towel boy, you're fired. The people in the back who set up the Gatorade, find a new job. Like, matter of fact, bro, the people who drove the opponent, the other team to us, bro, the Greyhound charter bus, yeah, you're fired, bro. We going out for the movie.
Everybody fired.
I think
You
to
got
Pride's
everybody but him.
the on the field stuff with Carson Wentz is, I don't think, the problem, because Jim Irsay, if I'm not mistaken, was kind of the catalyst to wanting Carson Wentz out. Is that accurate, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know there was some talk about he wasn't great for the locker room and some of this other stuff. Well, I mean, essentially, you be careful what you wish for. Is they went out and they thought that they were only a veteran quarterback away. They go and get Matt Ryan, who, to Rob's point, hasn't been the same since he lost that Super Bowl. And now you're seeing this team, and yeah, Frank Reich probably is coaching for his job right now, because you've got one of the most talented, at I would argue that coming into the season, they had on paper one of the better offensive lines in the league, and Jonathan Taylor, who's arguably the best running back in the league right now. And you've got still a fairly stout defense, and then you come out and you play extremely flat, and you look like you're completely lost, and you set your franchise back a few years.
Yep, exactly. Our defense is only giving up like 17 points a game or something. Our defense isn't the problem at all. And when you said the offensive line, the problem is that this year all they're doing is pass blocking. With Matt Ryan, they were throwing the ball 55 times a game. That makes no sense at all. I mean, that game plan there, if I was the owner and I saw that game plan, the coach would have been fired in.
That's not a winning recipe for anybody, though. I don't care how great the quarterback
especially with
is.
Matt Ryan. 55 times a game and you have Jonathan Taylor behind them, it just don't make sense. I think they're putting Hines up maybe for a trade because of they have that rookie running back Jackson that's looked real good that they have behind Taylor as well. And then they also have Lindsey on there, and Lindsey was running the ball decent when they played him. But I think they like that Jackson that just got rookie quarterback. He kind of bigger guy and runs powerful, and he's ran good when they put him in this year. So I think that's why they're kind of moving away from Hines, which they don't use Hines right anyway. They want to try to make him a straight running back where put him out in the slide. If you get him out in the open, he can make plays. But he's not a big guy like he's just going to run over people trying to run up the middle. So I never thought they used Hines up to his abilities.
They're not using Taylor to his abilities.
Nope, not this year.
I mean, the first game of the season, he ran 161 yards, and then the second week he come to Jacksonville and couldn't get but 71 yards.
I don't think he's had over 73 since that first game of the season.
Yep.
It's just, but we watched the game this last game that we lost. The same thing. He ran 15 times.
So who you think is in more trouble, Frank Wright or Josh McDaniel?
Man,
I would say Frank Reich, just because he's been around there a few years, and you can see how badly this team is struggling right now.
Mm-hmm.
Josh McDaniels is the first year in his new job, so I don't think it's as bad as like a Nathaniel Hackett situation where Nathaniel Hackett's been that bad and the expectations were extremely high.
Yeah.
The Raiders maybe internally, maybe in ownership had very high expectations, but I don't think around the league many people were looking at the Raiders in that division where you still have the Chiefs, you still have the Chargers, and the Broncos were supposed to be really good. And you look at the Raiders and go, yeah, they're going to compete for the division. I don't think anybody was saying that. So I think of the two, Frank Reich's probably on more of a hot seat.
But even with that, though, didn't the Raiders, they made the playoffs last year, right?
Yeah.
With no defense.
You wouldn't have thought that they would have took that much of a step back, especially bringing in the best wide receiver at that time in the league.
Yeah, and my fantasy team does not thank him for getting one catch in like 3 yards.
What do you have? One catch in 3 yards?
I had Derek Carr.
Yeah, let me see. When a team goes out for a wide receiver that worked in one system and then brings it to another system that don't even work, he's not made for that system. The offense they're running for the Raiders, Adams is not made for that system. Adams is made for the system that the Green Bay Packers had him for. And when you leave a team once you leave a team Once you leave a team that is, a system is working around you, and you got to go to another system, now you got to learn that system again. And it's going to take him at least a year to get that system down, even though he is quality with Carr because they went to the same college and things. So,
Ray, I got to stop you. You say he's not working in that system. He's had 300-yard games. He's got 5 touchdowns on the year, and he's had
how many games have they won? Out of all them.
That was not your point. You said he's not working in that system.
He's not working. I mean, he's not working in the system because they're not winning.
He's one of the best.
He might get the numbers.
One of the statistical best wide receivers in the league.
But he's not winning with that system.
That was not your point.
Team is not
My point is he's not working in the system because nobody else is coming up and helping his ass out either. I mean, if you got one wide receiver.
2 different questions then.
He's not working. I'm telling you. He might have 300. He might have 300 games. But out of the 300 games, how many games have they won out of those?
I'm just making sure that you're saying the right question. Just like we all call each other out. That's not what you said. You said he's not working in that
system. He's not working in the system.
Meaning he's not productive, and he's clearly very productive.
He might be productive in the system, but he's not working the system. It's 2 different things. He might get all the stats he wants in the system he wants to, but when Green Bay, he was getting the stats and he was winning at the same time.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
But that's not his fault, though.
Do we get to a point where we start questioning Derek Carr?
I think that's fair.
Yeah. He's been in the Derek Carr's been on the team for how long?
What, 4 years, 5 years?
Oh.
Yeah, and then I always say it takes a quarterback at least 4 years in the NFL to get to a capability. Has Carr got to his capability yet?
No.
Oh, it's hard to say kind of if he's got to his capability because he's had so many different coaches and offensive coordinators.
That's one point
he's
to
played
it.
in so many systems. It's hard to know what he could do if he was in one system for a while.
Then that's your man.
Greg said he told
Go back to your question. Go back to your question is, it's the upper management's fault doing all these too many systems and stuff, trying to get the right players in the right thing. I'm telling you what, if they could have kept at least the guy they had last year at the end of the year when they got rid of John Gruden, if they could have kept him, and if he wanted the job and could have kept him, even though he didn't want the job, he would have kept him. I think this team would have been better off than instead of having McDaniels coming in.
Oh, we have to question Carr. I'm sorry. This dude been on the Raiders since 2014.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's bad.
Yeah. Because
that's bad.
In 4 years, they said a quarterback should develop in 4 years.
This dude been on the teams for 8 years.
Well, and if you look at it, he hasn't been the same since that injury. He was playing at an MVP level that year when he got hurt. And then since then, he hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't been up to that same level. But when you play different systems, you just never know. But I know on my fantasy team this week, he got me like 3 points.
That quarterback got like 3 I was saying too. But I think so. It's not the connection between the two. It's a combination of different. It's a combination of different things, and that's where to Ray's point is that the whole entirety of that system, something's not. That's how hard it is to win in the NFL and sustain it. It's part Josh McDaniels, it's part play calling, it's part there's 5 targets, 1 catch for 3 yards for Devontae Adams last week, and maybe that was just good defensive scheming by the Saints, but you have to make those adjustments if you want to be a playoff team. Yeah. And I think that's what you meant to make the point, Ray, is that it's more than just the one player, because that's where I think a lot of us are kind of on the same page with the Raiders. It's that they've had this offense that is high scoring. Look at last year, it was their defense was the problem. And now this year it's a few different things. You know, their running game is inconsistent, the defense is inconsistent, and then Derek Carr at a lot of points is also inconsistent. So I think that's the next big. And Anthony's wanting to know, Rob, who the Bears are trading next.
I don't know. The Bears might be just letting everybody go at this point.
Yeah, Ray and I had talked at the beginning of the show about the Bears trade with Roquan Smith and all the picks that the Bears are getting. They're in rebuild mode, but you're not going to pay Roquan Smith, who's at the end of a rookie deal anyway. Might as well get something for him and continue to build out the team.
I'm not mad at, from a sentimental value, you get mad at the Bears for, you're like, look, dude, we just let go of Quinn, and now, we letting go of Smith. But at the same time, you understand, it's like muscles. When you're working out, you got to break them down to build them back up. And that's kind of what's going on with the Bears right now. I know you made the joke where Detroit has been in rebuild mode for the last 10 years. But honestly, though, I think the Bears are hopefully moving in the right direction. But this trade of Roquan Smith is going to determine, in my opinion, Ryan Pohl's legacy right now.
Now, while we got you on here, Rob, I want to ask you a serious question. Who do they need to bring in to teach Justin Fields how to read a freaking defense?
You know what? Tom Brady might retire after this year. Maybe he go talk to Tom.
Hey, he could have gone and talked to Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning knows how to read defense.
Oh yeah, you can go talk to my boy, Mr. Omaha himself.
But I'm telling you,
but Justin Fields is showing. To me, I don't put the Bears' problem solely on him. Like, he's a little bit to blame, but I think with the play calling, they don't let him go. Like we saw, like the week before last when they beat the Patriots. What happens when you let him go? Just let him be him. And he went out there and had a hell of a game. And even against the Cowboys, the defense couldn't stop anything. Like, if the defense was medicine, they wasn't stopping the cold. Let's just be real. When you put up 29 points, you put up 29 points on the team, you expect to win. And the Cowboys was 1 point.
Game. At least be in the game.
Yeah, they was 1 point shot a half a century mark. So to me, I'm not going, Justin Fields, he still has a lot to learn, but this is only his second year. I'm not going, from what I've seen from Fields, we have a good quarterback for the future.
You still have minimum 2 more years.
Yeah, we got to get that man some protection and get him some receivers.
Well, I mean, to a point, Ohio State. If you look at CJ Stroud right now for Ohio State, he doesn't know how to read a defense. Ohio State don't teach you how to read defense. They just teach you to go out there and play backyard football. That's all they doing on their offense. Nobody can stop him because he's talented and the offensive line is talented to keep him upright, and the receivers are good to get broken free. But they don't teach them how to read defense over there at Ohio State. I don't care what nobody says. They don't know how to teach them.
As much as I love the Ohio State slander, I don't want to go down that road because college and NFL are two fundamentally different games. If you have better athletes on the field, a la Ohio State, Bama, Georgia, you don't need to learn how to read a defense. You just step back, chuck it deep, and someone's got it. So we're not going to go there because I would argue that over 70% of quarterbacks in college football don't know how to read a defense. Because they don't need to.
Yeah, Florida quarterback can't even read. Well, the Florida quarterback does need to know how to read a defense. That dude I was at the Florida Georgia game last week. That dude throws a freaking ball right to the freaking Georgia player, right there to the player. His player's way down the field wearing a different uniform than a red uniform. He don't even know his school colors. Is he colorblind? That dude throw it perfectly past right to the Georgia defensive guy.
But I have to defend Fields to this point. He doesn't have time to learn how to read the man is like always in fear of his life. The moment that man hikes the ball, and Chris, you can understand this, from the coach perspective of having a bad offensive line. When your offensive line is not showing any type of protection, it's hard for you to learn how to read a defense. At this point, you're in survival mode.
Well, and not only that, it usually takes these quarterbacks about 3 years before they can read an NFL defense. I mean, even Patrick Mahomes said he couldn't read the defense until his third year.
That's true. Because to Craig's point, the NFL, it's the same with the NBA and NCAA basketball. The game is that much fast. You got to remember everybody on the field was the best at what they did at one point.
Go kind of with Ray's point is even in college, Fields, if you can get him off his first option, he would struggle some. But he's shown. I think he's gonna have to improve that with being able to get off his first option.
And that's
put
where
this point up here real quick. Anthony, I'm going to tell you about Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback.
Here we go.
I'm going
do I
to tell
gotta
you
go to
about it
break?
right now.
Do we gotta go to break?
Hey, I'm going to tell you about it right now. If he can get himself together, he can read the defense, but he doesn't realize that he doesn't produce his wide receivers. His wide receivers, he puts the ball in perfect places. Sometimes wide receiver drops the freaking ball, or sometimes wide receiver don't go after the ball, or sometimes your wide receiver don't make you look good. You know, look at Andre Hopkins. Kyler Murray don't put the ball on Andre Hopkins all the time, but he goes up there and high points the ball and makes him look good when he goes up there and catches them number passes. Jacksonville don't have an alpha male wide receiver, and that's what Trevor Lawrence needs. He needs that alpha male wide receiver, and that's for a fact.
That's what we need too.
Yeah. You know who else didn't have to read a defense in college? Trevor Lawrence didn't have to read a defense in college. They just had better athletes. All right. So, hey, we were talking about trade deadline. I know there's one other name real quick, and then we'll move on. Kareem Hunt's name has come up a lot in the trade conversation. Is there a possibility that Trey said, put me on now? Is Kareem Hunt a name that you see could get traded? And if so, where?
He might get back reunited. He going back home to Kansas City, baby.
Think so?
Yeah.
I think maybe the Rams.
He going back home.
Only problem with Hunt is it's a contract year, so you're basically it could just be a rental for the 8-9 games that are left. But
yeah, I know Anthony
had
made this comment. Yeah, Anthony had made this comment earlier that could be a destination for him. My question is for the Rams, yeah, obviously you want to try to bring in somebody like Kareem Hunt, but what do you have that you can give up? You don't have many picks to work with. They traded a bunch of picks to Detroit to get Stafford. They've traded picks to get other players. Like, they don't have much left in the way of draft picks. So
from what I'm hearing, it'd be like a probably a third or fourth round pick at least.
That could work. But yeah, I think
back home.
Part of that is I don't think getting Kareem Hunt in LA. Well,
that doesn't solve LA problems. And
it doesn't. It
at
doesn't.
The end of the day, yeah, I get exactly what you're saying, though, Craig. Because at the end of the day, LA ain't looked the same since they let Von Miller go. What you need right now is you. What's up, Dre? What you need, man? What you need right now, if you LA, you need somebody to help take some pressure off Aaron Donald. Because now what offenses are doing is they're keying in on this guy and they're not letting him get any penetration to the quarterback. And when he does, you know, they take advantage of the opportunities when they do, but he's not getting a lot of those opportunities. And what Von Miller did was the
Rams are done. They got the bag already. They
played. It's over with. It's over with. That's why Von got up out of there quick.
They played both Cup. They played the coach, the GM, and Cup. Man, the Rams are done. They cooked. They left St. Louis 5 years ago. But back to what Ray said about. Look here.
Is this college game day time?
I'm doing my own thing, and I tune on you guys' show, and I hear somebody talking about my Florida football Gators because he went to the game. And this dude want to tell me about my team. When the last time Carolina won the national championship? Go. I'm gonna wait.
Yeah, we didn't win the national championship in football.
In football.
We haven't won a championship in football. We won the ACC title with Lawrence Taylor, but that's about it.
38 or 78.
No, they never went to a championship game. No, national title.
But tell me one more time what you said about Anthony. One more time. What he doing wrong?
He can't read the defense. He threw the ball to the other team. He's colorblind.
I told you that on the show. Everybody
knows
why
I made the point.
Look, I fought every high school quarterback coach that puts a kid in a situation. That damn coach know that kid couldn't read a defense, but they still let them go to these Power 5 schools. So that's 2 years that we're behind on reading the defense. That's 2 years in the books. 2 years in football is like 5 years as a fan.
Yeah.
But you want to bring up the fact that Anthony can't read a defense, and we all know that? I really want to fly to Florida right now, to Jacksonville.
Hey,
and sit next to you and do this.
Hey, I'm gonna tell you what. Hey, you brought my North Carolina Tar Heels into the conversation. Drake May can read a defense.
What?
Drake May can read a defense.
Oh my God! You can't get
what's it as a redshirt freshman? He has only thrown 3 interceptions the whole year and 29 touchdowns in his first year as a starting quarterback for the University of North Carolina.
Florida, North Carolina conversation in football.
Hey, I'm just putting the facts
Florida
out.
And North Carolina conversation in football.
Hey, I'm putting the facts out. Who has the better quarterback right now? Who has the better quarterback right now?
Tennessee.
No, I'm talking about between our two teams. Don't go outside. Don't go outside your little ram of SEC football. I'm talking about between me and your team.
You look. Carolina has the upper hand right now.
Okay, that's just want to make sure you know the point.
Like you spotted something obvious that nobody saw. That's why I'm like, put me on this damn show because I told you Saturday he can't read a defense.
No, he can't. I told you. I knew that before you even told me that on the college game day.
They're what? I want to say what? 55 to 60 quarterbacks in college football have no idea what that defense is doing. They're just throwing the ball as we were little kids playing a little sandlot football with your little popsicle stick, your tree twig or whatever.
Look at Ohio State.
Your thumb finner. You go here, move to the car, I'm going to throw the ball to you. That's all they're doing. Yeah. There's probably 10 schools that prepare quarterbacks for the next level.
And you know what school?
Hey, collegiate organization.
You know what? You know those schools are? They're not the Power 5 conference.
We know that.
They're the ones teaching the fundamental quarterbacks.
Yeah, that's why those guys on Sundays are still doing this. Y'all don't get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
because they are way ahead of the curve. But those other let's say 190 to 95 kids, they have no idea what a pager is. If you plug up a landline phone, it rings. They don't know what to do. They're going to run the other way. They're going to think it's a fucking invasion.
And that to Dre, to your point, as a college, your goal is partially to get these guys prepared. And coaches say they like to prepare them for life and stuff, but their job is not to prepare guys for the NFL as their primary focus. Their primary focus is to scheme to win football games and to win national championships to secure their own jobs and get paid money, big time money. So for a place like I'll throw out Ryan Day at Ohio State and even Urban Meyer before that. Their goal is to go recruit some of the best kids to have the best athletes on the field to destroy the competition. They don't care if you don't know how to read a defense, because if you've got the better athletes, you can scheme up simple run and pass plays and destroy your opposition just because you have better athletes. The problem is when you get to the NFL, you have literally the best and a lot of times the smartest athletes that play that game all on the field at the same time. Now you have to outthink your opponent along with being a better athlete. And that's where a lot of these quarterbacks, they don't know how to read defenses, which is why the point these other guys were making is that it takes a couple of years for a quarterback to really hit his stride because you have to learn the game.
It takes average. They say an average NFL quarterback takes 4 years coming out of college to pretty much read the defense in the NFL.
So can you imagine if you play high school football, you got high school coaches that don't even tell their quarterback.
They don't even know what plays are.
Here's the play. Do what I tell you to do. They got the other guys that also tell that kid, go to this college. You go to that college, this kid goes to the college like, well, my coach didn't show me how to do that. Well, shit. Now we're wondering why this high school guy was a god to us in this high school is now barely making a college team. The lack of knowledge. Now we go to college and we get this guy in there that can do some amazing things, but doesn't know how to read a defense. Then he goes to the NFL and we're wondering, what's wrong with that guy? You got to apply the applicable tools going along the path of progress to get to your progression. If you want to play on Sunday, Mom and dad, you got to make sure your kid is getting the knowledge that needs to be had. Or it's what they call, you're going to get switched to a different position. And then we as fans say, well, why is he moving the tight end or the safety? Scott Frost can't read defense. It happens all the time. All the time. And we as fans, we blame the players and the coach and the institution. But we need to go to the origin. Like when Tim Tebow, I went off on the Tim Tebow situation. I blame his first coach when he got on that team after the Philippines. It's his fault for telling him to throw the ball that way. It's his fault. But there's nobody coming out of college that knows how to read a defense but what? Probably 10 to 15 people each and every year. The rest, they don't get it. There's no coach in college football teaching you how to survive on Sunday because they're pissed they're not working on Sundays.
And the only coaches that may be doing that are ones that have already coached in the NFL before.
The ones that don't have no animosity against the NFL.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
If they left under their own rules and went back to college, yes. If they were fired under mitigation circumstances or some shadiness behind the scene or never had a voice, they're going to have that, I'm going to hold you up.
Yeah, and I think kind of using that as kind of a segue now, I know, Dre, you and Ray do the college football breakdown every weekend, Saturday morning here on ASAP Network. So now tonight is going to be the first releasing of the college football playoff rankings. So I see Dre's already shaking his head.
We already know what's going to happen, man. They're going to screw somebody, man. I already know it.
So my two questions: who's your top 4 teams, and 2, who's going to be the first one to get the shaft already this evening?
Wow, we're going sexual innuendos already.
So who's going to be the one that's going to get be on the outside looking in?
Alabama.
Go ahead, Ray. Who you got?
Alabama. I got Alabama going to be shading. He's going to be looking in. Right now, my teams will be Tennessee, Georgia, Ohio State, and I got Clemson at number 4. And my 5th team will be Michigan, but Alabama will be looking in. I know Dre don't like it. I know you don't like Clemson being at number 4.
I just don't know what has Clemson done. What? Please, is Clemson more pretty than TCU?
No.
And then I got a feeling we're going to have a tie. I heard a funny feeling it's going to be a tie at 2 with Tennessee. I heard an ugly story about a tie at number 2. I don't know yet. I think the earliest that we all can get, other than other people, is probably 3:45. We're going to get the first one before everybody else before it goes national.
AP top 25 has a tie at 2.
So you saying that it's going to be Georgia probably be at number 1, Tennessee and Alabama be tied at number 2?
Yep.
Alabama.
No, I didn't say Alabama. There's a tie at number 2.
Ohio State.
So right now,
Ohio State.
The AP top 25 has a tie at number 2, Tennessee and Ohio State.
Yeah.
Michigan 4, Clemson 5.
Yep.
Man, I love your voice. Damn it.
Man, dude. If they come with a tie and put Alabama up there with a tie, come on now.
Bama is not in this.
Nope.
Ohio State
has nothing to do with this. It's the Ohio State in Tennessee.
Now I could have seen, maybe Georgia at number 1, Ohio State number 2, Tennessee at number 3. What? And then you can battle out your number 4 and number 5. I can see that, but why are you going to put them at a tie?
Is number 2.
I know, but why are you going to put them at a tie, though?
No, I'm not doing it.
That's what I'm doing. I'm questioning them. I'm questioning these people that they put in there.
Year we had when we had the Washington Huskies and Georgia Tech tied at number 1. That made no sense to America. But it happened. And it's going to happen again. But I'm glad that it's happening in the early stages before we get to the
next week. But this weekend could be a settled all that because Georgia and Tennessee plays this weekend.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep my comments to myself to Saturday. But guys, thank you for letting me chime on your show today. Keep up the great work.
Hey, Dre, I'll let you know. I did shave my head yesterday. This is 1 day of growth right now. So.
Oh, goodness.
I got to make sure I catch you guys on Saturday.
Me and Dre,
it's a great show Saturday. I tuned in a lot of. It's a great show.
Me and Dre let y'all know. Me and Dre made a deal. Since this is November, no shave November, I told him I'll grow my head and my beard at the same time to the end of the month to show how much my hair can grow. So.
It's gonna be funny.
It's gonna be good. You can check out Dre and Ray Saturday mornings at College Football Breakdown here on ASAP Network. Dre, thank you so much for joining us, man. Have a good one.
Keep listening to the show, man. You guys keep up the great work, man. Keep it up. Go Philly.
Right.
Go Philly.
Thanks, Dre.
Already.
All right, gentlemen. That was fun.
Yeah.
That was fun.
With on Saturday.
What's that?
That's why our shows are fun.
Yeah. Check them out each and every Saturday morning. College Football Breakdown.
I'm tuning in. Y'all want me over,
right?
Yeah, all the way up to kickoff.
Yeah. So
I tune in when I can. You guys do a great job.
Thanks.
Yeah. So with college football, the rankings are released tonight. Top 4. I know, Ray, you've kind of already mentioned a few teams. Gonzo, you got a top 4. Who do you think is going to get left out? Where do you see that?
I think Alabama is going to be the team that gets left out of the top 5. I think it's be Georgia, Tennessee, probably Ohio State. I don't know who they're going to put at 4. Myself, I like Michigan at 4, but I think Michigan's going to beat Ohio State here in a couple of weeks. I like that Michigan team, but Ray might be right. They might throw Clemson in there.
Yeah, I think so. Tennessee's done so much this year, beating Alabama. They destroyed Kentucky, who was a top 25 this last weekend. So likely they'll keep Georgia. I think they'll keep Georgia 1, Tennessee 2, Ohio State 3, Michigan 4. But the thing is, as Ray had mentioned this, Georgia, Tennessee play each other this year, and Michigan, Ohio State play each other this year. So this top 4 is going. We obviously know it's going to change.
And Alabama don't play Georgia in the regular season.
And Alabama, correct, will not. They might be the benefactor later in this season of other teams losing. So generally when they put the top 4, they also put the first 2 out. I would think it's probably going to be similar to what the AP top 25 shows right now. I think the top 4 are going to be Georgia, Tennessee, Ohio State, Michigan, and then 5 and 6 will probably be Clemson, Bama, even though I would argue I would put TCU ahead of Bama right now. And even you could argue that TCU could even go higher than Clemson because Clemson hasn't played anybody this year. They haven't done anything, but they're undefeated. They've got the brand recognition, so they'll probably get the nod there.
They just defeated the Syracuse team, which was ranked in the top 20. So
and Syracuse
they beat NC State when NC State was ranked number 13 with Larry at the quarterback since he got hurt. Right. So
Syracuse laid an egg against Notre Dame.
Syracuse got their ass kicked by Notre Dame, who is not good this year. So that if you talk about strength of schedule and all that,
but if you look at Notre Dame's wins, they have won because they overpowered the team like they did North Carolina. They overpowered North Carolina in the running game. They overpowered them in the tight end game. That's how North Carolina lost. Even though Drake May did throw 5 touchdowns in that ball game for North Carolina, but Notre Dame beat us because they were physical. They were more physical. The way they beat Syracuse, the same way they beat North Carolina with physicality. So, but also you got to think too that Syracuse came off that big emotional loss to Clemson. So that right there could play in a lot of plays of that game too. So, but if you look at the time of Clemson, you told me Clemson haven't played nobody. Clemson played the number 13 ranked team, North Carolina State, which they had their starting quarterback at the time. They, the ACC Player of the Year. They had him preseason Player of the Year was Devin O'Leary for North Carolina State. He got injured. After the Clemson game, he got injured the following game. He's out for the season. That's why I'm saying Clemson has played people, but you got to take both there in the nationality wise. North Carolina State's now dropped down to number 24 in the nation because they're having problems with O'Leary out of the thing at quarterback position. Then you got Syracuse now who lost to Notre Dame. So, but still at the time that when Clemson played them, they were still ranked.
All right. So here, let's use that argument. Okay. I'm going to turn that on you because you had said they played 3 top 25 teams, right?
No, I said they played North Carolina State and played Syracuse. We're in the top ranked teams.
So they beat Wake Forest at Wake Forest, who was 21 at the time.
Yeah.
They beat NC State, who was 10, and they beat Syracuse, who was 14.
Right.
TCU, on the other hand, technically by this argument, they beat number 18 Oklahoma, they beat number 19 Kansas, they beat number 8 Oklahoma State, and they beat number 17 Kansas State all 4 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I know. I could have told you that too.
Right, but I'm just using that argument.
I was just talking about Clemson. I won't talk about TCU. I understand what your argument was about TCU and stuff, but I was just talking about Clemson stuff. When you made a comment that Clemson hadn't played anybody,
right? So I knew that's why I wouldn't have them ranked.
But I knew what TCU has played because I sit there and watch TCU's games too.
Right. What I'm saying is that if we're splitting hairs about who has and hasn't played,
it really doesn't matter.
Then I would throw.
Matter have you split hairs anyway. Look at the past college breakdowns. When Alabama lost one game, their schedule was they played everybody in the SEC, but they played nobody in the overall non-conference game, and they still got in. Okay. So because based on their conference schedule, but why I put Clemson up there before TCU is because most likely the Big 12 or the Pac-12, the Pac-12 and the Big whatever they want to call themselves now, the Big 8 or whatever freaking. Anyway, those are the 2 conferences that will be left out of the conversation if the conference championship comes down to the conference championship between the ACC and the Big 10 and the SEC. Because SEC will get 2 teams in, regardless, whatever this breakdown comes down to.
Yeah, and that's something that you and I have talked about in previous shows, that the bias of the big conference schools will get that benefit of the doubt. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. To that point, Damien asked if if Georgia loses to Tennessee, do they get kicked out of the playoff picture? How far do you think they fall? I don't think they get kicked out of the playoff picture because Tennessee is ranked number 2. Now, if they lose, they've only got 4 games left. They play home against Tennessee, and then they have 2 road games, Mississippi State, Kentucky, and then they finish the year against Georgia Tech. If they lose 2 of those 4 games, yes, because you're losing against a non-top 25 team, maybe a Kentucky or something, then they might be out of the playoff picture because then they won't make the SEC title game. They won't have a chance to kind of make that up. But if they lose to Tennessee, they're still in. Look at Alabama in recent memory. They've lost, or other SEC teams have lost and still been able to get in the playoff because the opponent they lost to was also one of a top 4 team. So I don't know. Do you guys feel any differently? I feel like Georgia's still in, even if they lose to Tennessee.
Well, let me ask this. I'll ask you real quick on this. If Georgia loses or Tennessee loses, one of the 2, Alabama will get in over top of Georgia or Tennessee with the 1 loss.
I would have to look at. I'm looking up the SEC West and East standings right now.
LSU is winning right now. They got LSU on top of the West, over top of Alabama. They're tied, but LSU and Alabama played this weekend too. So
yeah, so that'll be a big thing, and that'll be your point, Ray. I agree with that. That I think if either one, somebody's obviously got to lose this weekend, Georgia or Tennessee. The loser of that is probably going to get leapfrogged by Alabama, assuming that they are the ones that play in the SEC championship game coming out of the West.
Yeah.
If LSU can pull off the impossible and win against Bama this weekend, I think a lot of people would be pretty relieved for one.
But if Alabama loses in the SEC championship, I think Tennessee or Georgia with 1 loss will get in before 2 lost Alabama.
I think it depends on where people are ranked at that point.
Yeah, it all depends on the conception, and then I wouldn't be surprised if they somehow, cause Nick Saban is there, they do the ESPN bias and put Alabama at 2 losses. If Alabama does have 2 losses, and put them right there, right over top of a 1-loss team, it wouldn't be surprising because it's just all about Nick Saban's and the ESPN and the coaches and perspectives. So
I know Anthony's got a question. Is TCU a true top 5 team? Take away the Power 5, the ranking, take away that. I mean, if I stack them up against the other teams in the country, I don't see them as a true top 5 team, but I know they have one of the best. I know they have one of the best offenses statistically in the country. Their strength of opponent isn't really that great outside of the 4, those 4 ranked games that they've won. But I don't know. What do you guys feel? Do you feel like they're a top 5 team?
They gotta have the wins in the ranked teams. The 4 straight weeks of ranked teams. You got to start with when they went into when they played Oklahoma. Oklahoma was running off teams, and then all of a sudden they came in. When they beat Oklahoma, what happened to Oklahoma? Oklahoma started going down. I mean, look who they played. They played Kansas. Kansas was doing great all the way up to the point they played them. They beat Kansas. Hey, Kansas State was playing great with Aaron Martinez. They beat them. They put doubts in people's minds, but they got to continue on winning to get in that conversation. They got to go undefeated. They can't take a hiccup. They have to go undefeated if they want to get in that college playoff rank. It's just the way it is with TCU. They have to keep winning.
Do you think they could go undefeated and still not make the top 4?
It's possible.
Now, it could be possible. But who they got left to play? I mean, I think they play Texas soon, don't they?
In 2 weeks. I think it's 2 weeks. I know they play Texas. They have 1 game before that. Then they play Texas, and they play 2 others. So here's usually what comes down to, because Ray's made a good point about the SEC bias and how they always get in the playoff. So from the rankings perspective of the College Football Playoff Committee, if you have to pick between an undefeated TCU team, say they win the Big 12, and then Oregon wins the Pac-12, their only loss is against Georgia in week 1. Who do you put in?
Me? I'll have to go with Oregon, because Oregon's the only loss. If Georgia gets in that playoffs, the only loss to Oregon was to an SEC team and number 1 ranked team, Georgia at the time. And I mean, Georgia destroyed them, but they learned from their mistakes and they kept improving as the season going on. But if I look at TCU had these runs. They had a run at number 13 Kansas. They played a non-ranked team in West Virginia last week. They beat number 18 ranked then Oklahoma State, who got pummeled by the team they lost to last week. So I mean, if you look at these things, they beat Oklahoma when they were ranked. They had a great run in that sprint. But look at their schedule now. They got to play Texas Tech, non-ranked Texas Tech. They got to play a non-ranked Texas. They got to play a non-ranked Baylor. They got to play a non-ranked Iowa State. That's their last 4 games, all against non-ranked teams, but in their conference. So you got to, they got to put it whatever is on their schedule. They got to play. But sometimes the Pac-12 and the weaker conference, and it gets left out because the ACC is more attractive than the Pac-12, the Big Ten. It's all the power names involved. But if you look at it too, SEC is always going to be that one conference. If you got a 1-loss team, it's going to get in 2 teams regardless of what you're looking at. It's just a fact.
Yeah, I think it's really possible. Damien asked, do y'all think who would have a better chance of making the top 5, Oregon or USC? I think Oregon right now, just because they not only they're ranked higher, they're undefeated in conference. USC has lost a conference game. Oregon has not. regardless of strength of schedule, Oregon doesn't have a really strong opposing schedule, but they're undefeated in conference, and they got 2 more ranked games as it stands right now. USC could make a run, but I think it's Oregon between the two.
Now, if you look at it too, I'll give you one scenario right quick here. If Alabama wins the SEC championship, Georgia has one loss, and they lose to Tennessee, and Tennessee loses the championship game. All right, you got 3 SEC teams are right there. How much you want to bet that the SEC takes 3 spots, and then kicks the SEC out and puts the Big Ten champion in there?
I don't think that would be possible. I think they'd only pick 2 SEC teams but that's me thinking logically, right? There's no way you could put 3 SEC teams and make that argument that they're some of the best teams.
Which SEC team was going to get left out in that situation if they all 3 have 1 loss? I think it's going to be Tennessee. I think it would be Tennessee that gets left out, even though I don't feel like they should. But I think just because Saban and Alabama, that they'll get in over Tennessee, and Georgia's been ranked number 1 most of the year, so
yeah, but
they're going to get in. I think Tennessee.
But if Tennessee beats Georgia, Georgia could get left out because Tennessee has to win over Georgia.
I would, to that point, I would say
and Alabama.
The 2 teams that make the SEC title game would be the ones that get into the playoff. You know what I mean? Like if it's Georgia Bama, and then Bama beats Georgia, those 2 teams are still going to make it because Tennessee and Georgia are in the same division. So I think the winner of this game this weekend is likely to be the team that gets into the playoff. There is a chance that both of them could still get in, but it's highly unlikely.
I wouldn't pass these people voting because there are a lot of people saying that they should be 3 SEC teams, and then that last spot should go to another team besides another Power 5 team. That probably the Big Ten, because the Big Ten is more attractive in football than any other Power 5 conference. So.
Yeah, right now it depends. This is the fun part because we get to see this tonight. We get to see this tonight, and we get to talk about the rankings tomorrow of who should be in, who should be out. But we'll talk about all that again tomorrow here on ASAP in the morning. All right, so one thing that we didn't know if we were going to throw this in the show or not, but we're going to do it anyway. So yesterday, the XFL 3.0. Third time's the charm for the XFL. They announced the 8 teams that are going to be official XFL teams this upcoming season. Now in 3.0, do you guys think that this XFL will be sustainable?
Well, I'm going to tell you. Let's read the coaches' names for these teams real quick. The Arlington Renegades got Bob Stoops. Houston Roughnecks got Wade Phillips. Orlando Guardians got Terrell Buckley. Vegas Vipers got Rod Woodson. San Antonio Bahamas got Hines Ward. Seattle Dragons got Jim Haslett. St. Louis has got Anthony Beck. And then the DC Defenders got Reggie Barlow. There's some names right there as a head coach. They can put some people of interest right there off the bat. Because you got college flavor, you got NFL flavor, and you got former players flavors, in there. So
I think it's sustainable. And the reason I say that is because I think the 2.0 version would have worked if it wouldn't been for the pandemic with COVID that year. Because they were doing pretty good numbers. And I think they would have still been around if it wasn't for the pandemic. So, and now they got a little bit of, I'm not sure all the terms, but a little bit of a partnership with the NFL. So I think it's going to be sustainable. But I was a fan of the second version. I watched it every week because it was more football in the spring when I usually don't get football.
Yeah, I think the one thing that makes 3.0 different than the other two is the fact that this 3.0 has a partnership with ESPN. 2.0 had Fox, which Fox is still a pretty big network. However, if you were talking about, say, for instance, I like to use this example of ESPN, unfortunately, like it or not, right now is the end all be all when it comes to sports coverage. And if ESPN is not covering something, it's quote unquote not popular. Look at the NHL, for example. There's a lot of diehard fans that are NHL fans. How often does ESPN cover it? Very rarely, more so this year because they actually have ESPN Plus where they've got some games now. But in years past, they didn't have much coverage on it because there's no contract to broadcast those games. So the only news I remember from XFL 2.0 was the day it started and then the day it ended. Because they didn't cover any highlights, very rarely. They didn't cover anything about the teams. But now that they have a partnership with ESPN with broadcast rights, I think you're going to see a lot more coverage from XFL. And it's probably going to be a little bit more sustainable just from that perspective. Because that's what a lot of this is all about now. Merchandise, ticket sales, that stuff doesn't really.
And that's why I said they've still been around if it wasn't for the pandemic. I mean, they were selling 60,000 seats in St. Louis.
But it's all about the deals.
No, I agree. I think it's better being on ESPN than Fox. But I truly believe if it wouldn't been for the pandemic that XFL would have never shut down. The second
I
time,
agree.
First time was a joke.
The first time Vince McMahon got in his own way.
That's Vince McMahon for you.
I was trying to put wrestling and football together, and you can't. That was a joke. But the second one had good coaches like they do now. I think the pandemic really hurt them, but I think it's going to be fun to watch this year, starting in February.
Yeah, Rob Scott, are you an XFL guy?
I will be. I'm gonna support The Rock. So,
well, he's got his own team. Look at the San Antonio
Brahmas.
The Brahmas.
I peeped that. The Brahma Bull. I was like, I like that.
I like the San Antonio logo. I like the Viper logo as well.
Go hard. The Vipers logo go hard.
I did think it was interesting that they reused some of these names, like the Orlando Guardians. One of the reasons why I'm rocking the Orlando Apollos hat here today. From the Alliance of American Football, I'm glad that Orlando got a football team because they had some turnout when they had the Apollos, but the Guardians team, like, they basically just reused the logo and the name from the New York Guardians of 2.0. Same thing with the Vipers. The Vipers were the Tampa Bay Vipers somehow.
St. Louis has the same name.
St. Louis stayed the same. Seattle stayed the same. Houston, DC, Arlington all stayed the same.
St. Louis has an emblem that looks like something you'll see on Halo.
Dude, St. Louis, the Battlehawks, dude, that was legit. I gave him a lot of credit for using that logo and that name. I thought that was a pretty sweet name. Houston Roughnecks, obviously going back to the Houston Oilers days. Yeah. They kind of took back from that. But I like it. I like this 3.0. I think it'll be.
I'm down with more football.
Absolutely.
Down with more football. You know,
I think it's gonna be a lot of fun.
A guy like myself who's not really a baseball guy, so I still have something to watch during the spring. I'm down with that. I'm down with that.
Ray, I saw you hanging your head. Go ahead.
I'm only like 2 hours. I'm only 2 hours from Orlando, so I'll probably go down and see some of that Orlando football game.
Yeah, it's in my backyard. I'll go check them out.
But the only problem is they're playing in Camp World Stadium, and that stadium has got awfully bad seats, everything else. I went to a bowl game down there, you know.
Yeah. That they
Ray, do you think the XFL will be sustainable?
It will be because there is a person that people don't understand. The Rock is a football kind of guy because he did play at the University of Miami. Yep. Rock is a big name right now through the movies, and his TV hit, the Rock on the NBC has now become a big hit.
Yep. Lil Rock.
So
you smell when the Rock is cooking.
But he does make appearance on that show a few times on that show, so that helps that show out. But The Rock's name going around and him instituting his name into this football, everybody believes in what Rock has done in his life. If you look at it, he started the WWE with $7 in his pocket. Went from a person living in his car, living on the streets, making a name for himself, helping the community out. Go back and see some of the things that he does. He gave one of his coaches a brand new truck.
Oh, the pickup truck.
Yeah, pickup truck. He wanted, I guess that coach wanted the pickup truck. He couldn't afford it. And he went back and gave it to him. Rock has done a lot of stuff for people that helped him through his life. And then when he told Vince McMahon, say, hey, you need to get your name out of this and let me run this thing. So Vince sold it to him. He said, if you can think you can do it better than me, go ahead. So now this everything the Rock has done is going to turn into gold. I believe this will turn into gold too.
It's true.
So
yeah, and the question that
is he saying he divorced his wife? Hold on, first of all, Dre.
No, his partner in his business partner in the XFL is his ex-wife.
Is his ex-wife? Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like they're still they
talk to each other.
People got to understand sometimes when you have a divorce, doesn't mean that you don't love the person anymore.
Well,
you're not in love with the person anymore.
Their divorce was mutual. Their divorce was mutual. Right. Yep, there was a mutual decision to part ways because the way his acting life was going, she didn't want to be all, him away from home all the time, and he started getting picked up traction. So it was better for them to split with the life that span that he was to stay friends, and rather than stay things. So basically that's what that was. So
while we talking about The Rock too, shout out his daughter. Just made it to the big leagues.
Yeah, made her debut on NXT.
Made her debut on NXT. So now, that Ivy family, man.
Real quick, because I know you two are big wrestling fans. Did you see when Sami Zayn made everybody break character the other night? That was so awesome.
That was gold.
They couldn't hold
that
it
was
together.
Gold. Uzi. That's not being very Uzi.
Did y'all find out the reason why they all broke character? Because Sami Zayn he ad-libbed that. That was just a pure ad-lib.
He did it to try to make them break, and he succeeded.
But y'all know that Sami Zayn was a comedian at one time. Y'all know that, right?
I believe that. Yeah, so Anthony, the XFL and USFL are both spring football leagues. So yes, they are going to be going at the same time. I think
that's going to make it more interesting. That's going to make it more interesting. If people want to watch football, you got more football right there to go against. And then I'm going against the NFL.
Yeah, so I think eventually you're going to see either a merging of these two, because two different spring leagues I don't think is going to be sustainable, and an organization like the XFL with the big brand that it's attached to being ESPN, I think they're going to end up winning out. But it's great, I think, to have spring football for people that are big football fans. You get to now see football all year round. And I know, Gonzo, you had kind of mentioned that they've been in a lot of conversation about making the XFL tied to the NFL in some fashion. I think if they turn that into like a
farm league,
kind of like the G League in the NBA, something like that.
Mm-hmm. I know. I've always thought that would be a good idea. It would kind of deteriorate college football a little bit, but that's where we're talking about reading defenses. How beneficial to players would it be to guys, instead of going to college, they can jump right to the XFL and be a farm system and teach them how to do that?
The problem with that is the NFL has already talked about it. If they do have this as a farm league, they still have to go do the mandatory 3 years of college football, because they're not going to be ready to go up against real men style football, because they're going to make this a more like a pro football style league, but it's going to be more of a man-to-man football league. And you don't want kids coming straight out of high school going up against a grown-ass man, because that ain't going to work too good.
No. And I think if they do it like that, like Ray said, you still have to go to college. I think that it'll eventually help the NFL even be better. But also these guys that don't get drafted, it gives them somewhere to go play, show what they can do, and then get in the NFL. Look at PJ Walker that's starting for the Panthers right now.
Carolina,
he got that job with the Panthers because he was going to be the MVP of the XFL 2.0 before it got shut down. He was balling there for Houston.
That's
how he got back in the NFL, because he was with the Colts practice squad for like 2 or 3 years, and then went to the XFL, and that's how he got back to the NFL. And now he's been able to start some games.
Not to mention, too, you're not making enemies because now you're not interfering with NCAA business. As we know, this is a business.
Yeah.
So with them still having to do their mandatory years in college, and then you using the XFL as a bridge to get to the NFL, everybody's friends, and then everybody's happy. And you got to think about it from that aspect. You got to watch who you making enemies.
And fans are happy.
Kanye West has shown us. Watch
fans
who
are
you
happy.
make your enemies.
So is Kyrie.
And fans are happy because you're getting to watch football basically year round.
Yeah, because if you put guys coming straight out of high school into that XFL and all that stuff, their bodies ain't mature yet, and you got grown-ass men going to really hurt these kids that coming in. They're not going – some people are built like LeBron James coming in, but their bones are still not developed fully for a man getting hit.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, could you picture somebody fresh out of high school as a center having to go against Aaron Donald? Lord Jesus.
Oh, goodness. Damien, your question, if the XFL has a success this time around, do you see the AAF come back? No, because the way that the AAF was so poorly run, and they were bankrupt beyond bankrupt, which is why that league went under. It had sustainability because it was linked to people that were connected to the NFL, and they were trying to make it a farm league, but because Ebersol and company, the people that were in charge of that, were so poorly running that and were basically stealing money. They got sued like crazy. They all went to court.
Ebersol had a part with the original XFL that failed as well.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's no way the AAF comes back. I would love to see the Apollos make a comeback. I thought it was a great fit for the city, the name, the branding, everything. But hey, we'll take the Guardians, I guess. It'll be fun. But yeah, XFL is going to get started. They announced all their teams, and it's going to get started in the spring. I know a lot of us are very excited to see that. And hey, we get, like Gonzo said, we get spring football all year round now. We get football all year round. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm down with that.
Definitely down with that. Real quick, tonight, Game 3 World Series. You guys got the Phillies or the Astros?
Going with the Astros.
I'm going with the Phillies.
Got the Astros, got the Phillies.
For Jay, man.
I'm going with the Phillies because Phillies got an extra day.
I took Phillies in 6, so I'm going to stick with it. Plus, I like that they're pitching Suarez now instead of course, I can't think of his name now. Syndergaard. Syndergaard was going to start last night, but since they got that extra day, they're going to start Suarez.
Yeah.
You gave Syndergaard an extra day of rest.
Yep.
Yeah. Game 3, come back to Philly. I think that crowd's going to be hot. I think they're ready to go. I'll take the Phillies tonight. I think that extra day of rest, you guys already touched on it. It's going to be huge for their bullpen because that's been their big question mark.
They don't have the depth that the Astros do.
Right. Correct. They don't have the depth. But I think they're going to come out. They're going to come out really fired up tonight. I'm very interested to see if the MLB does anything about the whole Framber Valdez potentially gotten some substance. I don't know what's going on but I just think it's funny that Astros again, kind of the center of controversy,
and used a bat they wasn't supposed to use. The one player did.
Yep, that's been banned for years, but yet, here we are. So,
hey Jay, you see, I was the only one that was riding with the Stros.
The one team that don't want anything like that to be around them. And then you have maybe 2 allegations already.
I'm rolling with Philly because Philly's in the Braves division. So,
there you go.
Well, that's another reason I rolled with Philly. I'm a more of a National League guy than the American League. So, I like the Reds are my favorite team. I've always been a National League guy.
Yeah, I thought Astros are they're really talented, and they're better top to bottom than the Phillies. But the one thing that the Phillies do really well is they were showing a graphic in Game 2. All of the runs that the Phillies have scored in the World Series so far have been after the 4th inning, and a majority of the runs that the Astros have scored have been within the first 3 innings.
First 3.
So the Phillies are great about they might be down, but they're not out. And I think that, especially with a hot crowd going back to Philly for the first time since 2009 for a World Series game, I think all that plays a part.
Yeah, and Philly did their job. Philly only wanted to take one game out of Houston. They took the first game. They took that one game out of Houston. That's all they wanted to do anyway, is take at least one game out of Houston. That's what they did. Now you got 3 games in Philly. So now Houston's got to take at least one game back to get it back to Houston. So,
Ray, did you just flip me the bird? No.
no. I'll put that finger down.
I got you. I'm just messing with you.
Damian,
I don't use that. I don't use that finger. I just do it. I put it down. I did this right there. So
he's like, I did this right here. He did that.
Yeah, like that.
Oh, I thought you was gonna give us some 4 horsemen action. 4
horsemen.
No, they don't have the 4 horsemen. You know, they got the 3 horsemen.
Asking about. Are you talking about Terry Francona, Damian? Because if that's the case, there's no way he's leaving Cleveland to go in division to Chicago when he's very happy in Cleveland.
He's already signed an extension with Cleveland.
Yeah.
I think you might see Ozzie Guillen back with the White Sox.
That'd be a hilarious disaster.
I really think that's what they're going to do. I think they're bringing him back.
I don't watch baseball, but no.
That tells you all you need to know about the White Sox management team.
Hey, don't you guys talk bad about the White Sox?
You're not even a baseball fan,
but I'm a Southsider.
You're a Cubs fan.
Southsider. So Mike's the North Sider. North Sider.
Okay.
I'm a Southsider. It's black and white over here. NWO status, baby.
So the only common denominator between you and Mike is the Chicago Bulls
and the Bears.
My sister lives on the north side, but her and her husband are White Sox fans.
Oh, geez, that's awful.
But they live on the north side.
Hey, I know we ain't talking about basketball, but I think it's time for Kawhi to retire. That's a subject for another day.
Are you? Hey,
Rob, we're gonna talk about that on the afternoon show.
Yeah, I think it's time. I might have to jump in on this show.
Yeah,
I got some thoughts on Kawhi.
Yeah, I know. There was a funny thing that happened last night at the Brooklyn Nets game where you got the people in the front row wearing
with the anti-Semitic.
So if you want to hear more about that, I guarantee you today on the Afternoon Blitz coming up in just under an hour, they will be talking about that and more NBA action as well. So if you want to check that out, if you're not already following the ASAP network on social media, you got to follow. That way you can find out when all the great shows we have here on the network are going to air. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. You can find us on YouTube, search ASAP Sports Network, on Facebook at All Sports All Plays, on Twitter at ASAP Network 1, and on Twitch at ASAP Network. Hit the like, the share, subscribe buttons, and comment throughout the show. We love interacting with everyone. We'd like to hear your questions, answer said questions, and hear your takes about the latest news in the world of sports. Wow. So with that said, gentlemen.
Time flies.
We're already at 12 o'clock Eastern. Afternoon Blitz comes up later today at 1 o'clock. Easy Money coming up later today as well.
Along with today as well.
Bullshit is also tonight as well with Rob Scott and Mike Hughes. So check that out here on the ASAP Network. So, gentlemen, have a great afternoon. Gonzo, Rob, Ray, thank you for joining us. As always, everyone have a great, fantastic November 1st. It's Tuesday. We've only got a month and a half left of the year.
Hopefully 2023 is better.
This year has flown by.
2023 is the stuff, man. It's been a struggle, 2022, Lord Jesus.
Hey, it's been something, but you know what's not struggling? ASAP Network. ASAP Network, as Jay Ness likes to say, ASAP to the moon.
Duval.
Uh-oh. Have a great afternoon, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow morning on ASAP in the morning at 10 a.m. here on the ASAP Network.
We gone.
All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so time for laces. sports all plays.